Hello, I'm Jennifer at Busy Lady Quilt Shop, and we are back today with another video. I'm going to show you all the things you need about binding, not quilting. Well, it's quilt related. So, we've got a bunch of products here. We're going to show them to you. You can purchase them. Make sure you check in the description for a link to our website. So we're just going to go step by step and show you all the things that I use when I put binding on a quilt. First up is the folded corner clipper. This is a Creative Grids ruler, and you can cut triangles or angles on a 45-degree all the way up from 1 inch all the way up to the whole thing is 5. But no matter how wide you cut your binding, it should still work. And I cut mine at 2.5 inches. So I'm going to set this down on the fabric. And you can see here that the line is 2.5 inches. So I've got that on the bottom of my strip, and the top of my strip here is flush with this little corner that's like that. And I can do this anywhere along the strips, but I want to keep as much fabric as I can. So I'm going to go as close to the selvage edge as I can. And then I have 4 layers, so make sure you use a nice sharp blade, and you're just going to cut all of those off like that. Now I have this little tip here, and I want to get rid of that. I don't like that on my binding. So I'm going to flip that over, and I'm just going to line up my edges again, side of it, and then I have a line here on the 2.5 inch mark, and I'm just going to trim off that little edge there. So now I have all of my binding pieces cut for one end, and when I sew them together, they're going to sew up real nicely like that. And I'm going to stitch across here, and then I'll open up and I'll have a perfect straight line for my binding. Okay, so now that I've got this end cut, I'm just going to turn around, do the other end the exact same way, all right sides up, trim off my corner, and then I'm going to trim off this little nip here. And now I'm ready to join all my pieces together. Okay, so today we're sewing on the brand new Memory Craft 9850 Special Edition. It is a new machine from Janome, and I'm really impressed by it. One, it's a 9mm machine, so that's really got a wide stitch width on it. It is an embroidery unit, it has an embroidery unit on it. And it has all the bells and whistles that I would want on a machine. It has scissors. It has a up needle, up, down. There's lots of different features on this machine. It's got hundreds of stitches and all kinds of built-in embroidery on it too. But for today, we're going to use it for binding. So I've got my 1/4 inch foot on here because I've cut these where it's designed to be cut with and sewn together with a 1/4 of an inch seam allowance. So you can see they're cut where they'll just match up nicely together. I just want to flip one side over and line up the flat edge with this corner here, right sides together, and make sure that the edges right here are matching up. And then I'm going to stitch with a 1/4 of an inch seam allowance. And I used the stitch on the machine that is under quilt, and it's the number 2 stitch, which gives me a 1/4 inch seam allowance. And I'm using the O foot with the guard. And we're just gonna stitch. Oh, it's so quiet. This is a great machine. And look, I'm gonna cut my scissors. This is fun. And then lift it up, bring it up. And now my pieces, once I press, that's going to be lined up exactly perfect across my binding. And I'm just going to repeat this process for each of the edges, and then we'll be ready to put it on the quilt. Okay, the next project we have up is this binding maker from Taylor Seville. which is pretty cool. It has a little QR code on there, so if you forget how to do this, it could video would remind you. And on the side of it, it has markings. It has 2.5, so the blue one is what I would use for my binding. But if you cut yours at 2.5, you would need the green one. So the way that works is I'm just going to fold my binding in half just to get it started, just a little bit. And it goes in this little tray here. And you push that down and then snap it in like that. And now I'm ready it's just going to make my binding. I'm just going to pull it through. And as it pulls through, it makes this nice sharp crease for you. And this is great for when you don't have a iron. This is done without an iron. It also comes with a winder. You can wind up your binding. It keeps it nice and neat. So it's very easy to use. Just pull it through. And when you get done, you just pull it all the way out. Voila! Go. All right, so now we're ready to stitch my binding on, and there's a couple things you got to be aware of when you do this. One, you're sewing through your quilt. You've got a layer of cotton, a layer of batting, and then another layer of cotton, plus 2 more layers of cotton when you put on your binding. So your regular 2.5 millimeter stitch length is not going to be long enough, or it'll take you forever to go all the way around. It'll feel like you're moving at a snail's pace. So I lengthen my stitches to a 3.0, and then whenever, I'll show you here in just a minute after we stitch it, but it's going to look as though it's that 2.5 because you just added those extra little stitches. Also, my binding is 2.5 inches wide. So folded in half like this, it's 1 3/4. Whenever I stitch the binding down, I want my seam allowance to be 1/3 of 1.75, which is about 3/8 of an inch, give or take a little bit. So I usually do a scant 3/8, which is the middle of 1/4 and 3/8. That's where I set my needle to be at the edge of my presser foot. The reason why I do that is whenever I have my seam allowance, then I'm going to fold my fabric over 1/3, and then the other third's going to come around to that edge. And I want this to be just a tad bit over, and we'll talk about that a little bit more later. But that's why you do the math to figure out your seam allowance, and that'll help make sure that it's even binding on both sides of your quilt. You don't have a real skinny side versus a really fat side. Now, I like to stitch down on the back first and bring it around to the front and top stitch it down on the front. There's lots of school of thought about that. It's up to you on how you want to do it, but this is how I like to do it, what works well for me, and the way I've been doing it for years. So I also start on a long side of this is what is this? This is a wall hanging. So I'll start on the long edge, and I'll start on the back, and I give myself about, 10, 12 inches of a tail to begin with. And I also take my first binding strip and go all the way down to the edge and just measure, kind of ballpark measure it to make sure that this seam here is not going to hit at that corner, because trust me, you don't want that to happen. All right, so then I'm just going to line up all of my raw edges, and I'm going to start just anywhere along the beginning of anywhere along the side of the quilt, and we're just going to stitch. Keeping everything nice and neat. Wow, this machine is awesome. I mean, for the value, it's great. If you're interested in this machine, you can contact Busy Lady Quilt Shop. Now, before I go all the way to the edge here, like I said, my seam allowance is about 3/8 of an inch. So I need to stop at about 3/8 of an inch. Now, I usually ballpark eyeball mine. You can, if you're really precise and you want it perfect, take a measurement and make a little dot so you know how far to go. So I'm going to go to about right there, and I'm going to lift up my presser foot. My needle's still in the down position, and I'm going to turn it, and now it's going to stitch straight out to the corner of that binding, or straight out to the corner of the quilt. I'm going to cut my threads, take it out, and then see, can you see that real good? Okay. So now I'm going to turn my entire quilt. I'm going to take my binding and fold it up away from me, and I should have let me come over here and show you. Fold it up away from me, and I should have a straight line going all the way down. Then that stitch should go out to the corner. I put my finger here and then fold it back and then start again. So this, and at this point is I start off of the machine and I come, or off of the quilt and the binding, off of the project. And I'm going to stitch, I'm going to go all the way over here, and I'm going to repeat that same process for all of the corners. And I'm just using the side of my presser foot as the guide. And we're also going to be doing a whole series on this. So this is a binding. This is like a traditional binding method, but we've got a book that's, what's the name of that book? Ultimate
Binding and Edge Finishing Guide.
Ultimate Binding and Edge Finishing Guide. That book has lots of great different finishing edges in there, and we're going to be showing you how to create some of those for your own projects. We have, there's one that has binding, I'm sorry, rickrack. There's a knife edge, like a two-toned or faux piping, is that what it's called? Faux, yeah. So there's a lot of different methods that you could really get jazzed up about and finish that quilt. And you know, if you want to enter it into a competition or something, sometimes that binding is, ooh, it's really close there too. Sometimes that binding is what will get you a ribbon versus someone that didn't. Isn't that right, Susan?
Yes. That's what the judges look for.
Yeah, they really inspect the binding. Okay, and this also keeps the binding with the way we've trimmed. I trimmed it just, you know, a couple inches away from my border. And that batting goes all the way out to the edge of my quilt. So you'll see how, you'll see how that keeps it nice and even all the way through, which is also something they look for. All right, this is what I was talking about. You don't want this seam allowance in the corner, and it's really close. I think we're going to be able to maneuver. Yeah, it'll be fine without it, because it's just at the edge. All right, I'm going to go, this is my last corner, and then we're going to show you how to join those edges. Okay, so now I've stitched all the way around. I've got my tails, and I need to join these two pieces together. Sometimes people just kind of overlap it. They'll kind of tuck it inside like this, and then just stitch it. That's a shortcut, but you're not going to win any awards doing that.
And that creates bulk.
Yes, and that creates bulk, and that's when the judges rub their hands along the edge of the quilt. That's what they look for. So what we're going to do is join these two pieces together just like the rest of the pieces are joined. So there's no extra seam or extra bulk anywhere. It's like one continuous bias strip piece, or bias diagonal seam. Yeah. All right, so I'm going to, about somewhere in the middle, and this is all eyeball, so about somewhere right here, I'm going to take my binding, and I'm going to fold it back on itself, like so. Okay, Just let that sit there. Or you can pin it. If you don't, we're going to pin it because I don't want it moving around for the video. Then we're going to repeat this on the opposite side. And I'm going to leave a gap there. I don't want that touching. And that might be a little small. I'm going to
Quarter of an inch.
do a really scant quarter. Really, because once these get pinned down, they'll merge up closer to each other. So these, you want a little bit of a gap there. It's about 1/8 of it, a little bit more than 1/8 of an inch. And that's what I use. Now we've got glass head pins, so I know I can hit the whole thing with an iron and then it's not going to damage anything. But if you use plastic pins, make sure not to get that heat. And my iron's not hot. Didn't get hot fast enough. Here we go. Okay. So I have a nice hot crisp section there. I'm going to open that up and lay that out to the side. You can see I have, well, you might not be able to see very well, but there's a crease that goes across that way, and then there's one that way, and I'm laid it off to the side where it looks like an X. Okay. And I'm going to lay that right side up. I'm going to repeat that and lay this to where I match up those crosshairs. Just like that. Okay. You might have to scrunch up the side of your quilt some. So now I'm going to have to stitch from here to there. And what I want to do is keep this pinned. That's why I have 2 pins. You can use more if you want. But I have those 2 pins. And now I'm going to go to the sewing machine and I'm going to stitch from there to there. Now, if you're not 100% comfortable with that, you could draw a line. But that, you know, I'm just going to eyeball it and stitch from this valley to that valley. And it's very important, you want to check it at this point. Don't cut it yet. So you want to check it, make sure, yes, okay, that works. That's the way I want it to look. And then I can trim these pieces off. Okay, so now I've trimmed off that excess and I've pressed that piece of binding down. Now I'm just going to stitch this opening closed. And the little extra opening that we left when we put the two pieces together, that was so whenever I sewed and pressed it, this lays nice and flat against the back of the quilt. And then I'm just going to stitch this down, lining up my edges. And now I'm going to go back to the ironing board and I'm going to press this open or press this out, and then we'll be ready to stitch it down on the other side.
There you go.
All right, so now we're just pressing this over so it get a good crease and good chance for us to come around and wrap this down, and we'll have a really nice edge. Now, if you don't feel comfortable with that, there's another product we can use, the Steam-A-Seam light Steam-A-Seam 2, and it's a 1/4 inch seam tape, and I can press this down right at the edge of that 1/4 of an inch. Just use a piece of it so you can see how it works. And then I'm going to hit it with an iron. Let that cool a minute. And then I'm going to peel the paper tape off. And then I can bring this around and iron it again, and that's going to help keep it nice and straight as I stitch it on with the sewing machine. And you can do that all the way around. And then top stitch it.
I think that's how Stevie likes to do it.
Yeah, Stevie likes to do that. She likes this method.
Yeah.
I'm a speed queen. I like to just get it done fast.
Now, how about the corners?
So when you get to the corners here, you can use your hot hammer. Actually, this has a 45-degree line right there. I like to fold the bottom part up first, and then I'll bring my the side over, and that gives me a nice crisp mitered corner. And you can press that down, and
It kind of gives it a memory.
kind of gives it right, and then you have that nice crisp edge, just like that, or corner. That keeps your corner really pretty. Next, we're just gonna top stitch this down. So remember our seam allowance where you had it set. This should be the right at the edge of the sewing machine, and if I stitched right now, it would be right exactly where that first stitch was, which would be going in, you know, where this red thread is right here. But I want it to be just a hair over from that because I don't want it to show on the back side. So I want it to be kind of in this ditch as best as I can keep it there. So I move my needle to the left just a couple places, just so I know it's going to go right along the edge here and be in that groove versus up on top. Now, Janome has this great product called a bi-level foot, and you want to use the left bi-level foot. They have it for regular machines and then the professional 9mm. And we're going to show you how we use it. But what it does is it has two different levels. It has a thicker level that'll ride down here on the shallow end, and a thinner spot that'll ride across these thicker ones. So I'm just going to change out the foot, and we're going to use it today. And I'm going to show you how it helps keep things nice and neat. So now I need to adjust. Now that I got my foot on here, I'm going to ride this opening, this groove here is going to ride right next to my binding. If I did that, my needle is going to be too far over. I need to move it over to the left more. So I'm just going to move it to where I think it needs to ride. And it's going to go right, yeah, it's about an 1/8 to a 16th away from the edge of the fabric. So and here we go.
You're just folding that as you go.
I am, yeah. I mean, it's your preference. I mean, if you want it to look perfect, you know, I just... Yeah. And then if you look over here on the back, it's riding right along that stitch. And I used a red bobbin, so if I got onto the binding, like right here, it's not the end of the world. Nobody's really going to pay a whole lot of attention to it. So you don't want to use a contrasting... Like right there, it did a real good job of keeping it in the groove, stitching in the ditch. But if it gets out, it's okay. It's on the back. And I'm going to show you how I do going around the corners. But the bi-level foot really keeps it from makes it stay in its own lane. So now I'm down to the corner. I'm going to fold the bottom up and put a little, like use my stiletto or something. I don't have one right here, but if I keep that pressed down in that corner, then this piece will fold over really nicely, and I have a nice sharp corner right here. And if you can hear that machine, it sounds like it's kind of thumping. That's a clue to me that it's going through all those layers. I need to kind of nudge it, but I'm going to go and I'm going to stop right in that corner, lift my presser foot and turn it. I'm not back stitching, I'm not cutting my threads, I'm just doing one continuous stitch all the way around. Well, that bi-level foot makes it nice. And I'm not worrying about over here. I'm just paying attention to make sure that that crease is staying where my binding ends. Down, spin it.
What you mean about the sound.
The sound, yeah. And I just kind of nudge it over a little bit, like, oh, you know, that way I know it's staying like right. And you can, I can't show you this on camera, but I can feel like the seam right here. I can feel it. So I kind of know, as long as I have about 1/8 of an inch right there to play with.
Did y'all need some help? Doing it on. Okay. You know. I got this. I want this back.
Almost done.
We were doing it on in here.
And sometimes it gets cantankerous and you can't get that sound quite. Pull that up. Over. Get my strings out of the way. This is a nice one. I'm gonna have fun sewing on this one. Fold it up, fold it over. And the reason why I'm folding it up first is it helps reduce the bulk here. So you've got a seam, if you can see the fold kind of goes that way on the bottom, and then on the top it goes this way, and that reduces the bulk in the corner. If I try to get them both to go the same direction, it leaves a lump there, and that's another thing that I believe that the judges look for. But don't get me wrong, I don't quilt for, I quilt for my own personal use, and I'm a utilitarian quilter. I quilt for my own use, but you also want to make it look nice, you know, so you try to do all the things that you have good habits, and now it's going to lay nice and flat. Now when I stitch, I'm going to start and stop at that same spot. And I'm going to use this little button here that ties a knot. It's a little bullseye. It goes up and down a little bit in the same spot. I'm going to cut my threads. And we are done with the binding. Woohoo!
Yay!
Yay! We got a finished project.
So all of those
Just in time for next 4th of July. Magic is really good for helping keep your, like, spray it and keep it nice and crisp. And if you happen to get the steam seam on your iron, you're going to need some iron cleaner, so you want to clean that off. I think we have everything
And we
else.
do have the book,
This is the book that we were talking about.
and we'll show some more techniques out of that soon.
Yes, this is a great book. This is a really nice one to have. It has a lot of different, it has 16 different techniques in it. So we'll be doing a whole series on some of those. And the Creative Grids ruler is on the website. And then we have both sizes of the binding maker. You got the 2.5 and the 2 1/4. And this is the little tool that you wind all your binding up to keep it nice and neat. So So
And
thanks.
if you love the pattern, we
Yeah,
do have
if you-
that. It's
if
laying on
you-
the table as well.
Right. If you like our patriotic skinnies, we have 3. There's 3 of these in the pattern. You can click on the link below and purchase that. Yes, we have a flat rate at $10 on shipping, and if you have $125 or more in a single order, it'll be free shipping. So
Okay.
thanks for watching, you guys. We'll see you next time, and don't forget to like and subscribe.